Federico Chiesa has been excluded from Liverpool's Champions League squad and excluded from the Azzurri's World Cup qualifiers against Estonia and Israel. And everybody's up in arms, saying Chiesa should have left in the summer. You know, Gattuso had a talk with him in the summer to leave. The Italian Football Federation asked him to leave, to return to the Serie A. And, you know, Chiesa wanted to stay, prove his worth in Liverpool, even though he knew that he was out of favor with Arne Slot from last season when we only had a handful of appearances, didn't score in the Premier League. And, you know, everyone right now is blaming Chiesa for not leaving. Well, let me say this. Would you take a 40% cut at your job? Because right now Chiesa is making $200,000 gross a week at Liverpool. The two clubs in Italy that were seriously interested in him were Atalanta and Roma. And if you look at the wage structures of Atalanta and Roma, at Atalanta, no one makes more than $100,000 a week besides Gianluca Scamacca. He makes, I think, about $115,000. And at Roma, you have Dybala, who's kind of an outlier, making about $290,000 a week. And the rest, about 5 or 6 players, making $140,000-ish. So Chiesa, to go return to the Serie A, would have been making between $120,000 to $140,000. So about a 30 to 40% pay cut from his current gross weekly wages. Who's going to do that? And I think we all have to, come to the realization that this is a very different Federico Chiesa. The European Championship, Euro 2020, Federico Chiesa is gone. That guy is gone. It's a new player who no longer has that explosiveness to even be a winger. I think Chiesa's, post-injury position is more of a second striker, kind of sitting behind the main striker. Maybe in like a 4-2-2, 4-4-2, or a 4-4-1-1. I think he could do really well there. Not necessarily a centrocampista, but a little bit, further up the field. And people are like, well, he's basically turning his back on Italy by not wanting to return to Serie A, get ready. So it's a World Cup year. Italy's in a critical stage in the World Cup qualifying. If you guys seen my previous video, I don't think Italy is going to qualify for the World Cup. And I think Federico Chiesa knows this. We like to, get a little funky on this channel. I like to bring in the esotericism. And, Federico Chiesa, when you run the numbers on him, he's born on the 25th. So he is what would be a 7 in numerology, because 2 plus 5 equals 7. Not to mention, if you add up all the digits of his birthday, he's born October 25th, 1997. You add up all the digits in his birthday, you get 34. 3 plus 4 equals 7, which makes him a double 7 in numerology. Now, if you know nothing about numerology, the number 7 really has three main components, 3 main attributes. The first being the number of the genius. I think Stephen Hawking, I believe, is a 7. The second, injury prone. 7's notoriously very injury prone players. An example of that, one of the best players of all time, the striker Marco van Basten, was a 7 life path who won 3 Ballon d'Ors and then retired at 29 due to knee injuries. And the third, last but not least with the 7, is the number of the loner. 7s like to be on by themselves, never get married on a 7 day, 7 the 16th or the 25th. Word to the wise, don't pick your wedding day on those days. So when we tie that into Federico Chiesa, I don't think he cares, man. I really don't think like this whole the national pride, go play for the Azzurri. He knows Italy's cooked. He knows the squad. With Rino Gattuso is not a tactician. He doesn't have the tactical wherewithal to lead this team through the qualifiers. And for him, why take the 40% pay cut? He literally is in a no-pressure situation, making a shit ton of money to go to training and sit on the bench. And I think he knows he's not the same player. I think the expectations are too high. And I think he's in a position now in his career where he's just happy to sit back and make that money. And there's really nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, this is a career path for these players. We as fans, we don't really look at it that way, but Chiesa took the money. He would rather make the money at Liverpool than return to the Serie A and earn a place in the national team and go through this grueling qualifier where, let's be honest, when we look at Italy's roster for these 2 qualifying games, when you see the exclusions of a Nonto who played 3 games, started 3 games for Leeds United in the Premier League, a player with pace, with dynamism, he's excluded. Gattuso doesn't want him. It's going to be the same old Azzurri. We're probably going to grind out a 1-0 win against Estonia, 1-0 win against Israel. We're going to the qualifiers, and I don't, when you look at the teams that we could potentially face in the qualifiers, likes of a Turkey, a Sweden, are we really going to beat those teams? Are we ready to play Goulart and Yildiz for a World Cup spot? Gokares and Isak? I'm not optimistic, and I think we're at a point where we have to move past Federico Chiesa. I know we all look very. He won us the European Championships in Euro 2020, and we all have a lot of fond memories. The goal against Austria, but that player is gone, and everyone, like I said, everyone's in outrage. Everyone's up in arms about Federico Chiesa, but this is a player who hasn't played in a year, that has never been the same. I talk about that number 7. He's had those injury concerns. Last year he couldn't string together 2 training sessions without some sort of fitness issue. I think as a Azzurri fan, we need to move past Chiesa, and I think when we look at like our wingers in particular, we need to be looking at guys like Nonto, guys like Koleosho. Bring some pace in the team, bring some athleticism. And we'll see what the future holds. I do feel bad for Chiesa. I think he did deserve to be in Liverpool's Champions League squad, but unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles. And we'll see what happens coming in the January transfer window. Because now with Isak at Liverpool, he's never gonna get a game. They'll put in Harvey Elliott before they put in Federico Chiesa, which I think really speaks volumes of how Arne Slot views him in the team, and really he doesn't value him at all. So Forza Azzurri, let's hope we can get 2 wins out of these qualifying games, and really let's see what happens under Gattuso tomorrow.